2019 Global Touring Car Championship went past the half-season mark with round 4 at the 45-year-old Aldo Scribante Racetrack in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Province of South Africa. Hello everyone, Arnold Gets here bringing you the monthly update on the Rainbow Nation's premier touring car formula GTC. Races are not less than 40 k's in length, and starting positions for Race 1 across both classes are determined by fastest qualifying lap times, with Race 2 a reverse grid format with previous race finishes the yardstick. 8 stops right around the country, and after the first 3, it was as open as a political convention in all its classes, as all the top manufacturers were all still vying for victories and points. And as they say in the trade, race and watch them over the weekend and sell them on Monday. Scribante presents an interesting challenge with its 2.5 k's of straight, hairpin and sweeps, and its 7 corners taken at various gear settings and setups. It's a very interesting mix. As for the GTC2s, the battle was raging on unabatedly, and it meant that no one could take anything for granted at the halfway mark of the 2019 season. It was all still up in the air. As is always the case in this part of the world, at this time of the year, the wind was howling and made for some interesting lines on the old circuit, which had recently been resurfaced. As in any sport, confidence is the determining factor, and for ADRIAN Wood in his beautifully turned out VW Golf, there were some challenges, but the mood was confident.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to have a strong weekend. We came here quite confident, had some issues yesterday. The guys worked flat out on the car the whole day, went out this morning, and the car was brilliant. Went out for qualifying again after that. Not so happy, some gremlins started creeping in. But the team are working at it again flat out. I'm sure for the first race we're going to be right up there.
How much will the wind affect you in the race?
Well, in qualifying it was quite hectic, going into the first S as well as that hanger right-hand sweep. It feels like you're going to get blown off the circuit, so that was quite bad. I think it'll all just be about managing it correctly. I'm pretty sure one or two of us might misjudge it, so hopefully capitalize if anyone does.
Already a winner and perennial competitor, Johan Fourie in his impressive Beamer was out to prove that his good run in Killarney in round 3 was no fluke, while the Volkswagen lads were hanging on to those stopwatches for dear life. However, 27-year-old Simon Moss in the all-power Moss Racing Audi dominated throughout Friday's practice sessions, followed by pole position at his home circuit on the Saturday morning. Johan Fourie and Robert Volk qualified 2nd and 3rd in their BMWs, but it was Moss who made the grade and the grand from Dunlop in pole position. Simon's old man could not have been more pleased, but felt the home plate pressure.
Yeah, there's always pressure at home. We've done some testing here, at least the only circuit we get to test at. And I thought we'd be slightly more ahead instead of so close, but you know what, it's so healthy for the sport. And so happy for Johan Fourie in the BMW. I think he did a great job. And let's see how the race goes. And him and Simon have always raced well together. They've respected one another. Funny enough, they used to be both rugby players in their day. So I think they used to sort of hammering one another and then drink together afterwards. So I think we've got a good crowd here today. It's a good motorsporting event. And I think the finale is going to be quite a humdinger.
Rugby and driving, that always seems to be fuel and fire together, but as Terry, himself a legend, says, let's wait and see. And look-see is what the Port Elizabeth faithful got to do, as the pits and starting grid is open to anyone to get up close and personal with the gleaming beasts and their intrepid pilots. So Moss, with a rather thin margin, would lead off the grid from Fourie, who would be pressing hard from the off, no doubt. Volk and his BMW settled into 3rd on the grid, while KEAGAN Masters spearheaded the Volkswagen Motorsport Jetta March by taking 4th. He was fractions ahead of the Gazoo Racing South Africa Toyota of Michael van Rooyen, while Daniel Rowe in the 2nd Volkswagen Motorsport Jetta would wait for the green light in 6th, with Moss's teammate and longtime Moss teamman Chop Sapuka next in line up at Scribante. In the GTC2s, Brad Liebenberg was shooting to consolidate his position at the top of the points table. Friday afternoon saw him setting the pace in the class. Woods sorted out the problems to start off the 3rd spot, while Mandla Ndekani's Mini was fast enough to start in 4th, with Paul Hill in the Kalex Racing Volkswagen Golf going at the back end of the field. Race 1's formation lap produced even more spectacle as Moss's Audi developed a misfire which forced him into pit lane prior to the start, and he was in a hurry to get it sorted. This left Fourie with empty real estate in front of him off the line. And quite gleefully he took the opportunity with both hands. The question was how quickly could Moss's pit crew sort it out for him to get back out and then secure first place in the reverse starting grid for race 2. You need to be very canny in the GTC setup. But then the old fox Fourie probably invented the word as he went out hard, but not too hard. Vok kept him honest as the 12 laps ahead meant that everyone had to pace themselves because within the 2 odd hours they'd have to do it all again in reverse order too. In the GTC2s, Smallberger showed good speed out of the blocks and was clearly going to be a handful to hold off, while the rest of the lads sorted out the early order in the Eastern Province. Fourie, with a season in which he's had the odd thrill and spill, has had a 2019 in which things haven't quite gone his way. But in PE, it seemed that race 1 was set up perfectly to turn that around. As it was, the Beamers needed a good one to edge closer to Volkswagen, who were leading the manufacturer's title chase. Vok was not giving up hope either, and through Luke Repko corner the S's and the hanger sweep, he was trying to hold on, but it seemed that Fourie had his number in cornering, but the long straight would tell a separate story. And it did, as Fourie, a multiple national champion, stretched his lead after the first 2.48 Ks of the Scribante Raceway, in car with a man from Pretoria. Meanwhile, back and forth, the Toyota Gazoo Racing's Van Rooyen has had mixed results this year but scored in each of the 3 rounds to date. That put him in 4th place on the log, just 3 points behind Volkswagen's Daniel Rowe, who was 3rd. The Toyota pit really struggled with electrical issues in the Cape and then battled to balance the car properly, but both of these issues had been sorted after a lot of testing. Sepuka used all the tarmac and then some. It looked as if Fourie was building up a good head of steam and was just pulling away from Vok, with young Masters in 3rd. He stole the show in his debut outing at the Desi Raceway, driving the powerful Volkswagen Motorsport Jetta on debut. Masters dominated the GTC2 in the past 2 years, and the 19-year-old scored an outstanding 2nd place finish in race 1, followed by 4th in race 2 with a reverse grid starting order. This earned him a well-deserved 2nd overall for the opening round. The GTC2s and Smallberger and Liebenberg were tying one on as well, as they have virtually all season, despite Wood sneaking into the lead on lap 1. But coming into the S's, it was still Fourie who'd again let Vok ease up to his back bumper, but there was now a gap between 4th and 5th, perhaps car setup again proving vital, as it always does at Scribante. And it was exactly the same for the GTC2s. Ndakani was going smoothly in the Mini, with Paul Hill keeping him company. Rather close company, actually. Fourie, the original arrow from Paro, won his first national production car title more than a decade ago, but here in PE, he was under mounting pressure from Robbie Vok, who's been a model of consistency throughout the season. After 3 laps had been completed, Moss's pit crew did the impossible and got their man out there again in the Audi. Now he had to rejoin and keep it going just well enough to get pole position for the 2nd race. Fourie would not have been entirely pleased to see the black and yellow beast in front of him. Meanwhile, Masters went wide into turn 1, and that allowed Van Rooyen in the Toyota to grab the gap. Sounded like he also missed a gear, and that was that. Down the main straight and past the pits, Smallberger maneuvered into position and then in a classic move went up the inside, as Wood just did not have the pace to hold him off. Brilliant in-car pictures letting you know just how hard the racing really is. Up front, Fourie again had whittled out a slender lead, but could afford no mistakes. Interestingly, the pack was making no headway on Moss, who charged out of pit lane, hell-bent for leather. Masters was intent on changing the red and white Toyota colours on the bumper to something slightly more blue, but down the straight and after Luke Repko, the 19-year-old returned the favour and went back into 3rd place, and then said, thank you as well. What a nice young man. Vok has had a busy time of it, what with racing his A1 GP Ferrari at the 2019 edition of the Jaguar Samola Hill Climb to 2nd place in the single-seaters, and other commitments, seemed to have his BMW set up perfectly for the PE track. Incidentally, the Aldo Scribante race circuit is situated on the outskirts of Port Elizabeth and measures exactly 2.48 Ks long. It's tight and narrow and is a driver's circuit demanding inch-perfect driving and setup. It made its racing debut way back in November 1974 and was built at a cost of a whopping 80,000 Rand. It took 14 years from dream to reality, all due to the hard work of the Algoa Motorsport Club and their ever-faithful sponsor Aldo Scribante. Meanwhile, Masters noticed a sudden loss of power for Vok and realized he needed to shove on past, which he did with aplomb, and Van Rooyen was also not hanging around. The two set off in pursuit of Fourie, who had finally built a significant gap. But it was clear that the Gentleman could not relax for a second. His teammate Rowe was now also looking to pass the Beamer. With just 5 circuits to go, it was Fourie, Masters, Van Rooyen, Vok holding on desperately, and then Daniel Rowe. But the impressive thing was that Moss was clearly superior in speed as he comfortably stayed ahead of the field and kept the dogfight behind him at arm's length. Daniel Rowe and his Jetta now lined up Vok, who was seriously having trouble with the BMW, and he squirted by very comfortably too. Fourie is the consummate professional, and he was driving like someone who was up against the edge but still completely in control, just like you wanted actually. He'd made a change to the roll bar just before the off, but it was affecting downforce, so there was clearly more speed available out there. Fourie in his EPS Courier Services BMW 2 Series, controlling things from the front, putting the finishing touches to a solid drive on the last lap, and he gives the checkered flag salute as he nabs a win and the invaluable championship points that go with it. Masters, Van Rooyen and Rowe finished in his wake, with Sepuka a distant 5th. In the GTC 2 category, Liebenberg held off Smallberger after a race-long ding-dong battle, while Adrian Wood overcame Friday's mechanical difficulties to finish in a solid 3rd. Fourie was magnanimous in victory.
The race was great. It's a pity about Simon, but I'll take the win because we need it. So would have been lucky to have a dice with him, but it seemed like he still had a little bit of pace. But I made a change before the race, and I thought it can be clever, but made a change in the roll bar, and I thought because that's creating understeer. But now I can see the splitter is off, so I had no front end downforce, so the car can go quicker. So I'm encouraged by that. But yeah, very happy, very happy.
GTC 2 winner Bradley Liebenberg had to fight the good fight after a clean start.
Yeah, I got a pretty decent start. Just managed to get away in the beginning, and then Charles came, and then I think him and Adrian got a little bit in a battle, and then I got away a little bit again, and then the traffic at the end caught me in some pretty bad places, and then I got a little bit close at the end, but yeah, happy with the results. Now reverse grid for race 2, so it's going to be interesting.
And interesting is the word as the mechanics and engineers got down to business. The reverse order start for race 2 changes the dynamics completely. You'll find out just how much right after this. You're watching round 4 of the 2019 Global Touring Cars at the tricky Aldo Scribante Raceway in Port Elizabeth, and the second race of every meeting starts in reverse order. In other words, in reverse to race 1's finish, and that puts Simon Moss on his second pole for the day, because after experiencing a misfire on the warm-up lap, Moss made it back onto the circuit, albeit 3 laps down, but then managed to finish in 7th place, as well as take valuable points from the race. More importantly, this saw him heading up the reverse grid for the afternoon's second race. To make it even better, his Audi teammate Chop Sepuka would start right behind him to give him some cover. The rolling start, and Moss with Vok on his outside and into Luke Repko corner, the right-hander for the first time, and for once a rather orderly entry into the first corner. Well, sort of, as there was always a little jostling and wrestling, with the adrenaline flowing in race 2 as it always does. Moss at the head of affairs where he likes to be, and judging from what we saw in race 1, he would be a tough customer to beat with his raw speed and great cornering, as long as the Mackie's got that misfire to disappear. In car with Masters right at the back and pushing as hard as he could to improve on his position. Vok had held his place and Van Rooyen was up into 4th, but just as we suspected, Sepuka was doing a good job of slowing down the rest to give Moss some daylight up front. The canary yellow and black colours on the Audis may look familiar. It was the same all-power emblem which was on the first Polo Cup car that team principal Terry Moss purchased when he started development racing with Chop Sepuka almost 2 decades ago, and Simon Moss was carrying them with distinction. In the 2s, the lads were still sorting out the early pecking order, with Liebenberg having to work his way up and the proverbial blanket covering the whole lot. Simon Moss and the Terry Moss Racing Audi Sport A3 had go-to-go victories in Port Shepston's Desi Raceway in the opening races of the 2019 season, and has been, bar 1 or 2 mechanical problems, dominant for the most part. His pit has obviously got the knack of getting the setup right, and here in his own backyard, the Audi Sport PE squad were at it again. Moss was going away. And Sepuka was doing a great holding job, while Vok was losing ground up in second. Van Rooyen, the two Jetters and Free all impatiently waiting to go by, but Scribante needs one to pick exactly the right spot. It's not a track you can do any second guessing on. But something had to give and the frustration boiled over. Sepuka got it out of shape, going into the S's and then unceremoniously shoved out of the way by Van Rooyen. It somehow was inevitable. Now the chase was really on. That got the Jetters up to Volk and past as Rowe did a great job of closing the gap with Masters right behind him and waiting to pounce. Fourie now found himself as the filling right between a Volkswagen blue and white sandwich. But the wily veteran was in a fighting mood himself, and as they set up for the right-handed sweep at the bottom, he outdragged Rowe, and even with a little nudge, he went by. Beautifully done. That took Masters with him, as Rowe lost a lot of momentum and speed after that little kiss. Volk in his chemical logistics-backed WCT engineering Beamer was battling along, and it seemed as if his power problems had been sorted, but they were all off the flying Moss's pace. Fourie was tying one on with a two-pronged Jetta attack and could not afford any mistakes at all, while Van Rooyen was probably getting as red as his car from frustration at not getting the gap he needed. The battle between Fourie and Masters was an intriguing one, as the youngster put the veteran under immense pressure. This was skin-of-the-teeth racing, and Masters had the best line going into the right-hander, Dunlop, and he holds his line. It's tight and up close, but it seemed that in a straight line, the Beamer was a little faster perhaps. Masters unhappy with this result in the end. You've got to love it. No holds barred racing in the 8th race of the 2019 season at Scribante. Now let's take another look at that shunt of Sepuka's. Just got bent a little, a touch from Van Rooyen on the way, and the precast wall needs some fixing. Not to mention the Audi. The race stewards would certainly have to have a look at that one as well. This is what it looked like from Chops's vantage point, if you want to call it that. Van Rooyen, granted, had a rather frustrating afternoon after getting caught behind Sepuka for half the race and was probably wondering about time penalties too. This is what he saw, and don't say we don't show you the inside scoop. Here's Daniel's front row. Well, that's racing for you. Tough sport for tough boys. With just 8 laps to go, the die had been cast and it was catch up for the field as Moss kept going further and further up the road. Bradley Liebenberg in his GTC 2 was all over Adrian Wood's similar car. In fact, Wood may have thought that Liebenberg was a tattoo, he was that close, but the first race winner who could not find a way past. As for Smallberger, he had to call it a day after 4 laps. He first noticed a vibration developing early on, and despite a brave effort to plug away the Golf, suffered a broken wheel stud. And then the resultant wheel coming off. Luckily, it quietly went to sleep trackside and caused no major upset, with the marshals waving the yellow flag to caution the drivers. The 4-car train went at it relentlessly and kept plugging away at each other. In car with Van Rooyen, his frustrations over, but just taken up with another position up front. Certainly some very hard work, as Fourie had a Jetta all over his back bumper as well. Van Rooyen in that Toyota just losing a little bit of ground here and needing to make it up in a hurry. Liebenberg was showing signs of frustration himself, but Wood was doing a superb job of holding him off, making himself as wide as possible at the very few passing spots that exist at Scribante. Mandla Mdakani in that clean-looking Mini had his mirrors full of Paul Hill in his Kalex Racing VW. They were duking it out for 3rd and 4th. Back to Michael Van Rooyen in the Gazoo Toyota. He'd clearly seen enough of the back of the Jetta and was desperado trying to find a way, but Masters was in no mood to be charitable. In this format, you have to earn it. Liebenberg in action and still looking to make it 2 for 2, but not if Adrian Wood had any say in it. And right now he was shouting, "No way, Jose!" That Kyocera Golf looking wider every time that they came past. Wood kept himself in exactly the right place into the corners at every spot, and the right line at Scribante means that the attacking driver has to outthink, maneuver and outsprint you, and Liebenberg was just not able to do it. And then, of course, there's the Van Rooyen way. Just pure muscle. Hold on now. And he grinds through on the inside, pushing Rowe onto the dirt, and that would not have helped his tyre grip for the next stretch of tarmac either. Finally, the Toyota had some open spaces in front of it, and Van Rooyen could set off to try and catch KEAGAN Masters, but it would need a mistake from the 19-year-old up ahead. South Africa was introduced to this global racing series in 2016, which races with 2-litre turbo-powered racing cars. The cars all have a common chassis, single ECUs to control the performance, control tyres, suspension and other components. And it means that the GTC 2 Championship Series has created a much-needed revival in South African circuit racing. Indeed, a shot in the arm. Moss was going like the clappers and only needed to keep all 4 wheels on the blacktop to get his first win of the day. He started off the round 4 with a slender 12-point lead over Masters, but this was one very solid performance after his first race shenanigans with that misfire. It was hand-to-hand combat in the GTC 2s as Liebenberg and Wood were giving it their all. The 32-year-old Robert Volk has been racing since the age of 9, winning no less than 9 single-seater championships in Formula Ford and Formula VW in his 23-year-long career, and he was steady in second, with Johan Fourie passing the 2s on his way to a steady drive. Now the question was, would Moss get held up on the battle for the top step of the podiums in the GTC 2s? But both Liebenberg and then Wood opened the door, and any hope that Volk had of closing the gap evaporated with those acts of chivalry from the GTC 2 frontrunners. In fact, now Fourie had the same worries as Moss had a few seconds earlier. But no such worries either for the man who was 24 points behind the championship leader at the start of the outing in PE. As the gaggle of GTC 2s sprinted their way past the pits at Aldo Scribante Raceway, the crowd were royally entertained by some fine racing. Volk, who's not lacked pace but has just been off the speed of Moss, was certainly not giving up and kept up the pressure, albeit from a little too far back. Whatever the case may have been, it was intriguing racing. Masters now had to deal with the 2 GTC 2 drivers ahead of him, and he too had no major worries in the little operation. Moss, though, again was in a class of his own and made it win number 4 for the 2019 season. He clocked his quickest lap of the day, the only sub-63 second run on lap 7, and was dominant throughout. His third go-to-woe win in the series, with Volk on the second step of the podium and Masters getting more valuable points for VW in the Jetta. Fourie and Van Rooyen were both given 30-second penalties in the end. Whatever the case may have been, it was Simon Moss atop the first step, followed by Robbie Volk and then KEAGAN Masters. In the GTC 2s, it was Adrian Wood who had his maiden win in 2019 and holding off Brad Liebenberg, who was looking for 6 in a row. Our man Dave Peterson caught up with Moss in the pits.
Simon, what a comeback drive there in the second race.
Yeah, no, had a great start. We knew we had the pace from the whole weekend. We've been quickest in every session. Unfortunately, race 1, we didn't get off the line. We had a little bit of a wiring issue. It's like they say, it looked like there was a sangoma in the car or something, because I don't know how that happened. It's been crystal clear. Everything's been perfect the whole weekend. And then as we go behind the safety car, a wiring gets us short and causes us not to start the race. So rectified that problem and got into the lead in race 2, and that was my plan, was just to put my foot down and go, just to show the guys what could have happened in race 1 as well.
The GTC 2 battle was one to savour, and this time Adrian Wood turned the tables on Liebenberg, defending all the way.
Oh, Adrian Wood, what a fantastic drive. You must be chuffed with that.
Yeah, that was a great race. The car was really nice. I had to defend pretty much the whole race, but it was good. I knew that once I got through on the start, I would be able to keep Brad behind me. It was great having him dice with me. Obviously, very respectful teammate, great rivalry between the two of us. But just a massive thanks to the team that worked hard all weekend to try get the car a little bit quicker. And in the last race, it was absolutely amazing.
At the halfway mark of the 2019 GTC Championship Series, Simon Moss had a slender lead of 7 points as KEAGAN Masters closed the gap. His teammate Daniel Rowe, who won race 1 at Killarney, is exactly 15 points in arrears, with Van Rooyen and Fourie deadlocked on 140. In the GTC 2 Championship battle for supremacy, it was Brad Liebenberg who extended his lead to a breathable 17 points ahead of a resurgent Adrian Wood, with Charles Smallberger in third. It seems that barring disaster, the 2 top men will be fighting it out for the championship over the last 4 race meetings. But then again, anything can happen. Johan Fourie has certainly got the setting on the champagne right and would be hoping for more in 2019. From 2 races that was again filled with thrills and spills galore as it always goes in GTC racing, we extend you an open and friendly invitation. Round number 5 returns to the Swartkorps Raceway outside Pretoria on the 27th of July. If you can get there, we love to see you there. I'm Arnold Gant saying, thanks for watching.